parity in our sport is still getting better. There's no doubt that any team on this list and in the receiving votes list, and probably even outside of the receiving votes list, could beat people up at the 10 spot or the 15 spot or even the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to Coaches on the Beach, our week 3 preview here. Michael and I are fresh as daisies here in the quote unquote mid season, as some conferences consider it. We had a fun weekend of beach volleyball pretty much across the country. I would say not too much shakeups in the rankings. Michael, anything you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the new rankings, that you got your top 8, 9 pairs that all stayed the same here. Where we got to some big differentials was down towards the bottom. I meant Hawaii suffered from the not playing and getting dropped, so they went from 13 to 15 this week. Georgia State had a tough weekend. Bakersfield came out and got them on one, so they went from what was theirs? They were at 15. Now they're down at 18. A couple teams moving up. FIU moving up. So I think right now you're starting to see a little bit more where people are sitting, but it's still not figured out. We're walking into week 3. I know that's a third of our season for beach volleyball right now, but I think you're going to start to see more teams. I mean, our receiving votes category has really shrunk from the 8 team that we had last week to now 5, 6 teams, I think it is. So,
Yeah, and admittedly, a couple of those are getting, the 2 vote minimum in order to be there. So you only got to appear on 2 ballots. If you appear on 2 ballots at 20th, you get 2 points or whatever on the receiving votes category. Right now, I think we have Bakersfield is getting 2 points, Concordia gets 2 points, and Arizona gets 2 points. So not a ton there. You expect. I would hope that at least one of those is going to drop out of the rankings. Theoretically, Arizona, because I plan on taking a victory over them on Friday. So hopefully we can kind of move them out of there. But like you mentioned, it is starting to narrow out. You're starting to see teams get stronger. I think Grand Canyon had a strong weekend, faced some comparable competition, getting a win over Boise, a win over Stetson. Kind of the expected loss versus Arizona State and the win over Arizona. Probably deserved that little 2 point bump that they got. Hawaii, I think it's just hard to be 0 and 6. I think that's at the end of the day, that's going to get in your way pretty regularly. It is worth noting, right? Stetson, I think, had a decent weekend, but is probably on that 20 spot, right? I think you're going to see them kind of fluctuate a little bit. FIU might have gotten a little bit of a favorable bump. I mean, they did beat FAU, right? That's a
mm-hmm.
top 15 ranked win. That is for sure worth noting, but not sure it justifies a 3 spot bump out of them. Wins over Southern Miss, had to be strong Sun Belt team. Southern Miss got Sun Belt Pair of the Week. I just happen to know that because I'm in that conference. The Utah team actually looks very strong. Utah, not
Yeah.
historically a squad that you think about, but has seemed to continue to make strong improvements, and it apparently showed out really well in South Florida. And then PBA, it's a good weekend. I'm not sure it's a 3 spot weekend. Texas had a solid weekend. I think really asserted they're not still playing ranked teams yet, but are playing that solid 20 to 30-ish range
Mm-hmm.
of teams and handling their business rather smoothly. And so that 13 spot feels pretty justified to me. LSU did everything they could by winning all their matches,
Yeah.
but drops a spot. Arizona State gets a couple of ranked wins, moves up. I will say you've got North Florida there, undefeated still on the season, narrowly escaping a Mercer team that is going to have some fun matches. I think they're playing Bakersfield this weekend,
Yeah.
and so we'll see how that East versus West matchup goes, and see if Mercer can earn that ranked spot.
Yeah, I think you mentioned LSU going up that spot. They with their 5-0 or going down one spot with their 5-0 weekend. I think one of the more impressive things with that is like they did play 5 matches in 2 days. So one of those days they're playing 3 matches, which could be seen as kind of a trap game. I think working into that favor. I mean, they had North Alabama on their schedule for that one. North Alabama is a pretty solid team right now. That they pushed LSU a little bit. They pushed Florida State just a little bit. So I think LSU dropping that spot with 5 games in a week, and I think that could have been seen in different ways. But last weekend we saw the big Hawaii tournament, and we saw the top of the rankings kind of shift around. This week we saw some more matchups with teams that are decently even with each other, and then we saw that kind of shift through the 10 through 20 spot into the receiving votes category. So I think going into this weekend, people have a better idea of where we're sitting. Now you got some film review on some teams and seeing where their pairs are at, how that is all shaking up. I think Georgia State drop into Bakersfield. I mentioned that earlier. I think that was a big eye opener for me with Bakersfield in that coast to coast matchup. Um, he said Mercer's going out to play them this weekend. They also have another matchup, which is going to be my match of the week on Saturday against their fellow California team, Concordia, which are both receiving votes now. So, I mean, you mentioned Arizona possibly dropping out when they play each other. What happens there? Does one of those drop out, or does it give them a boost for both of them? But again, week 3 rankings, it's more to start to determine what's going on in the future than it is who's in right now.
Yeah, well, it does beg the question, and I've had this conversation with some people, Michael. I'd like to hear your thoughts of like, when you're picking, when we got 17 teams in the tournament,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we
Mm-hmm.
have, what is it, 6 or 7 no, we got to have 8 or 9 conferences. I think we're at
Yeah,
eight
I think
auto
it's
bids right
8
now.
this
I
year. Yeah.
think it's 8 auto bids this season. So you're looking at 9 at-large bids.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to that ninth team, or that eighth and ninth team, are you more likely to pick the team that hasn't lost to the teams that are below them? Or are you more likely to pick the team that has beaten the top team but also lost to some lower teams?
Hmm. That's a good one, and like those at large spots are going to be hard to get this year with the CCSA not really. I don't think they're getting an auto bid this year, right?
CCSA doesn't get an auto bid, and Big 12 doesn't get an auto bid. But the MPSF will fill in for the Pac 12 bid that
Mm-hmm.
has since dissipated. So I think we went from 9 autos to now we dropped one. So I think we're down at 8.
Yeah, so I would say when it comes to it, you're gonna try to get the teams that either for me haven't proven themselves against the bigger opponents, or like if you're playing a USC 3 times in the season and you lost every single one 0-5, to me that's just showing like, hey, probably not their spot. But if you've only played them once and you've lost 0-5, but you've played another 10 to 15 range and you've competed with them 3-2, maybe you get that bump up to get into that last spot, to get into that playing game against whoever that may be.
Yeah. I'm always a big proponent of the um, ceiling qualifier, right? Like if you're the team that can prove that you can beat the top team,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm more likely to give you that bid spot because ultimately in a tournament, in a single limb tournament, that's all you're looking for, right? You need to win 4 games. Only one of those actually has to be over a top team, right? Or
Sure.
two, I guess. If you count the semifinal and then the
Yeah,
final
yeah.
as both being top teams. And so, it's one of those where it's like I'm going to give my leeway probably to a team that has shown me they can, even if they've also shown me that they might lose to somebody that we would consider lower. Now,
Yeah.
the number one thing, and we'll get into it when we talk about my weekend a little bit, but the parity in our sport is still getting better.
Yeah.
You're still going to see teams continue to be strong. I think there's no doubt that any team on this list and in the receiving votes list, and probably even outside of the receiving votes list, could beat people up at the 10 spot or the 15 spot or even the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's less likely. The percentages definitely go down, but I wouldn't sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Cal State Bakersfield beat Georgia State. They're getting better. Everybody's
Yeah.
getting better. And so definitely a lot to watch there. But
Yeah, I think to
Michael,
kind of follow up on that question too is to go even further in depth of like that playing game. Are you looking for somebody who's actually going to compete to win the title, or are you looking for a really close matchup for that playing game to get that excitement up of the sport? Same with those other seed, like the 11, 12 seed. Like, are you looking for a team that has a chance to win? Like last year, I thought Arizona State could come through if they got some momentum, and they ended up dropping the first round. But at the same time, they're able to play some very close matchups with how they were playing. So, are you looking for the excitement level of the TV game, or are you looking for somebody like all teams to be able to compete for the championship?
It's a great question, right? Should the true winner be what you consider the best team, or should it be the hot team? Right? I mean, I think we had a double limb tournament for years, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that is usually said to be the best team wins in a double limb tournament. It's hard to argue with that. We did watch Southern Cal and UCLA do it in years where I would say they're probably the best teams. Um, Now, four in a row, right? Four matches in a row, it's probably the hottest team. But at the same point, that's not to say the best team doesn't win. It's not like March Madness never has a one seed win.
True.
You're still going to see it, but ultimately it does lend itself to a little bit more variability. I would say for the play-in game, right, those have tended to be conference champions for the last few years, and so I wouldn't anticipate that changing too much. You do, I think, owe it to the number one seed to give them the fairest shake.
Yeah.
But I do think for the 11-12, I think you're looking for the most likely to win the championship. So who deserves that shot? Who's got that shake?
Yeah.
Uh, but we don't get to pick. We're not on the committee. We do get to highlight people that are fighting them their way
Great
to the
segue.
championship. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So Michael, we got a coaches on the beach chair award. Who are we giving it to this week?
This week it's going out to Arizona State to Kristen. They had a really tough 4-0 weekend. I think their fight out there and they're kind of continuing on the same track that they were on last year. They're building very quickly out there, and I got to give it up to her. So grab a cold one, kick back in a beach chair, and enjoy yourself this week until you get the Chanticleers coming through town.
I wouldn't worry about Friday's match. I'd just take a nap right through that. You wouldn't, don't stress about it at all. In fact, if you want to look out towards the Cal Poly match that you're playing on Saturday, I think that's a much better use of your time. Totally skip over the other three. Get yourself straight out to Cal Poly. They're going to be a good team, and you're going to want to watch out for them. So, yeah, I wouldn't stress about it at all. But Michael, we'll get into our weekend. So let's start. You had a short one. You had a quick
Yes.
trip to Columbia.
Very very short and very good weekend. Went out and played South Carolina UAB. I meant they're tough. They have a a very established systems that they're running. They were very disciplined in how they were playing. UAB was very good. I was really surprised with how physical they were being at the net. And we didn't have very much wind out there. It was really good weather, so conditions were almost perfect. Came out both matches 0-5, but showed some real toughness and grit in both of those matches. We just like the first weekend, how we described it. First weekend, we were trying to figure ourselves out. Second weekend, going out to South Carolina, we knew these two teams were going to be tough for us. But we were trying to figure out where do we want to go this season. Like where's the cap for us? And South Carolina's been in that receiving votes. I think UAB could be right there with them. And you look at our conference in the ASUN, you got UNF and Stetson at 19 and 20. That's kind of that same area. So we're trying to prepare ourselves by seeing some different types of teams, different types of strategies. The organization throughout South Carolina and how they were controlled in their touches and very systematic. It was a really good thing for our team to start to see. It allowed us to kind of focus in on a game plan and really utilize, like, all right, this was working at this point. Now we need to make an adjustment here. And so just starting to learn that different side of the collegiate game of here's our initial game plan, but that could switch after 3 points, 7 points, 14 points, whatever. And then just trying not to cause too many errors on our own and giving away 10, 15 points in a set. That is the next kind of steps for us.
Yeah, learning weekends are good. I think we did the same thing, right? I really enjoyed getting to experience that long travel. That's the furthest west our program has ever gone in the history of it, which means, um,
Big moves.
yeah,
Big moves.
well. we're gonna go further west this week. So
Bigger
I'm
moves.
actually getting on. When this episode drops, I'll be getting on a plane to go further west, which will be exciting. But I was actually really excited about the level of the tournament. SFA has done nothing but improve. I want to shout out Rachel for that because that squad was great. That ones pair is nasty, and I think gave Texas and everybody else at that tournament a good run for their money. So shout out Katie Hansen and Tessa Rogers, who told me before our match that she got a shout out on the pod, and I went, I hope it's in your head, Tessa. Turns out it wasn't. Fun fact. So, no, we lost to SFA 1-4, Texas 05, Tulane 1-4, and Corpus 1-4. What I really liked about it is we probably had the biggest shift in weather from our first weekend to our second weekend.
Okay.
Uh, Opening weekend at Coastal was brisk. It was nearing the freezing temperatures, and it was freezing on the sand at one point when other teams were showing up. And so we went from that to 80 and 85. And so that's a noticeable difference. Learning how we got to hydrate and fuel ourselves to be successful in that type of weather was good. We played back to back that first day. So how do you lose that match to SFA and then bounce right back and go play Texas on their home sand? When they haven't played right back to back, right? They're fresh. They're coming out for the first time. So at no point, I was really excited because at no point did I feel like we were just getting outclassed on the court. Right? We might have lost the matches. We might have lost by scores that, I'm sure some of them were 15s and 16s. I don't totally remember. I'm not great at remembering those exact point totals, but it was nice to feel like, okay, we are in this match and yeah,
Hmm.
we're young and we have to go figure out how to win some of this stuff, but we're not far away. And we're going to do it again this weekend. So
There you go.
um, we've got that exciting piece. And I guess I'll just keep segueing into our
Well,
next weekend.
something I did want to ask you about, like you said, this was the furthest your team has gone west. So not any flights, if any.
We flew to LSU in 2019.
Okay, so that in itself is a huge change for a team. Like you
Yeah.
don't realize how much you get dehydrated on a plane. The jet lag, the legs feel a little bit different coming off a plane. So if you're not used to flying a whole lot and then getting off and playing the next day, that too plays into it. And then playing back to back, like that's a tough draw right there.
Yeah. It's all the fun environmental factors that hopefully we're preparing ourselves. Of course, I don't know if we would fly to Gulf Shores should we be fortunate enough to make it, but
Yeah.
however we were to travel to the national championship, which a year ago we thought was going to be in California, it's good to know what that feels like and how that works. And so we're gonna
Yeah.
get another test at it this weekend as we go to Arizona State and play Arizona, who's receiving some votes. Arizona State, who's I don't know, I think somewhere in the top 10, whatever. Don't worry about them,
Yeah,
right? They're not
yeah.
going to worry about us. We don't worry about them.
They're not just winning awards on a podcast that we put out, right?
Yeah, not at all. And then Corpus Christi, it's fun to get to play Gale and Zane again. I think
Yeah.
it's a cool opportunity to play a team twice,
Hmm.
and in such close proximity is fun, right? I think now you get a chance to be like, okay, can I
Yeah.
adjust? Um, and then the last team is some no-name school. I think some polytechnic college. I think their head coach maybe played some beach volleyball at one
Yeah, I
point in his
heard he's going around with like this fake medal or something.
Yeah, he said it's got jade in it.
Oh,
The rare gemstone from China. I'm not totally sure.
yeah. Who
But yeah,
knows?
we're gonna play Cal Poly to wrap up the weekend, and so it'll be fun. I think it's always enjoyable to get to go coach against Angela Rock and Todd Rogers, and hopefully we can give them a little taste of their own medicine. I think we play a similar brand of volleyball, and so it should be exciting to see how that whole thing plays out.
Yeah. What is your guys' mindset going into the Corpus match? Like how is it? How are you preparing differently? Because we have a very similar thing as I'm about to get into our schedule here next. But like you just played them, now you're going to play them again. So it's almost a back to back type deal. You guys have
Yeah.
never been a home team, either of you. So you guys are both traveling. So what is the feeling like going in to play this Corpus team again? Is it the comfortability? Is there more adjustments going on? Or are you still focusing on your side of the net?
We're a one match at a time type of team, Michael. So we actually play Arizona first,
Okay, okay.
and so I'm focused on the Wildcats, bear down and such.
All right, Nick
Um,
Saban.
Giving Steve Walker, everything we got, and then we'll play it by ear after that. No, that is the truth though. Like I do try to tell our girls, like,
Hmm.
hey, we're gonna we're going to play each match one at a
Yeah.
time. The lineup is going to be what it is each match at a time. Your partner's going to be who it is one match at a time. There's nothing more we can do other than one play, 1 point, one set,
Yeah.
one match. And that's what we're going to keep doing. I think there's something to be said for looking forward.
Yeah.
And after we played Corpus last week, they were our final match at Texas. You know, we were our team was a little down. Going 0-4 is not a super fun weekend. It's not your favorite way to
No.
spend the
No.
time. But, I said, hey, the best part about this is the national championship was actually not played today. The
Hey.
Sun Belt Championship was also not played today.
Mind blowing.
I know. Sometimes it feels like it when you've gone 0-4. And then I said, but I felt really good about this Corpus match, and we're going to get a chance at that team again.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to play that team again. And we're going to do that a lot of times. We're going to play South Carolina a couple times. We're going to play Charleston a couple times. We're going to play Wilmington a couple times. We're going to, we got a few people. Georgia State's going to get a couple times.
Yeah.
Every team in the Sun Belt will play at least twice.
Good.
So let's take it a match at a time, and let's work on figuring out what the heck we're doing. We got two people that have been in our lineup before. We got four people that have been in a college lineup before. It's not great odds.
Yeah,
It's
we're
not
in the
super.
same situation over here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
right? So you're like, all right, let's learn, let's figure it out, and all we got to do is be really good for 4 matches at the conference tournament and four
yeah,
matches at the national championship, and you get to win it all.
yeah,
So you got to go on an 8-match win streak.
yeah,
Can we learn enough in the first 32 matches to be good enough to go win the last 8?
yeah. That doesn't seem hard at all.
No, it's super easy. I think I'm actually going to wrap it up. I'm not going to practice for the rest of the year.
There you
Just
go.
going to call it a day. Michael, you said you have a fun back-to-back weekend coming up.
Yes. So we are hosting this weekend in Clarksville. We've had good weather leading up till today. Today's
Perfect.
Wednesday. We went out to practice and we just watched the real feel decline from 40 all the way down to 28 in a matter of an hour and a half. This
Perfect.
weekend it's supposed to pick back up. We had a really big storm last night, the tornado system that was below us, and now the cold weather coming from the north is really cooling it off today. So we're hoping for some good weather, but talking about that back to back, we have UCA and Lindenwood joining us, and we've all decided to play each other twice. So we're truly going for a back to back where we'll play UCA first match, and then we'll play Lindenwood second match of the first day, and then the second day we go Lindenwood and then UCA to finish out the tournament. So this is going to be where I was talking about. First week we were finding ourselves. Second week we were finding where we needed to be. Third week is defining our identity. How are we going to be playing individually pairs? How are we going to be playing as a unit of a new Austin P Beach volleyball team? What is our identity going to be? And being able to kind of feel that comfortability of one being at home, but two being able to scout two teams, being able to understand after we play them, hey, we're going to see them again the next day. Whether we win or lose, we need to start making adjustments. We need to start gaining all that knowledge that we got from the first time we played them, and kind of reciprocating that, kind of like you would do in a conference tournament. So in a conference tournament, you might win the first 3 games, but that semifinal game, it's somebody coming out of the losers bracket where you've probably seen that team. Or you could be in the losers bracket and see that team again. So in a matter of a weekend, we're trying to pair that up to kind of get us ready for the mindset of where we need to be conference weekend going into that. But yeah, UCA being in the ASUN, that's got a little bit of tie to it. I mean, it won't affect the ASUN rankings because we're not doing anything with the head-to-head. But it's just nice to kind of have that one up on an ASUN team. And then Lindenwood coming in, I remember playing them last season, first weekend, and just watching their team just fly around the court, being really scrappy, and watching their film, they kind of have that same identity. So we're going to see 2 different styles of play. Lindenwood UCA played last weekend, and it came out to a 3-2 finish in UCA's favor. So I believe all 3 teams are going to be very evenly polled this weekend, and it's going to be a fun weekend for us.
That's awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it, and good luck against the Sugar Bears, one of the best named mascots in the country. Let's get into what's happening around the rest of the country. We have a couple of matches being played when Michael and I are recording this, but for everybody listening, they'll be done and over with. So Georgia State's got their day of duels.
Yeah.
They've got Southern Miss there, College of Charleston, and Tennessee Tech. I like the way, shout out Sean for the way he's pulling this with Southern Miss. I can only assume they're not going back to Hattiesburg, but rather they're getting on their airplane in Atlanta and
Hmm.
flying out to Southern California because on Friday they're going to play Mercer in Long Beach, which is just a super fun place for a team from Macon and a team from Hattiesburg to get to play a match against each other. And I really hope that that is a conference match because that is an amazing way to start the year out. But we do have Georgia State beat Southern Miss by the time we recorded this, and they haven't played since. Southern Miss 5-0'd College Charleston, and Southern Miss 5-0'd Tennessee Tech. So I assume we have two more Georgia State matches to go. Georgia State's probably going to play Charleston next so they can get on their way home, and then Georgia State will play Tennessee Tech to wrap up the day if I had to take a guess. Also out west, though, we have Cal State Northridge, Cal State Bakersfield, and Mercer all playing today. The only score in by the time Michael and I have recorded this and paid attention to it is Mercer beating Cal State Northridge 4-1. So Mercer Bakersfield should be a fun one to still see. East versus West, like we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Um, the other one that I got to shout out, there's just some fun tournaments going on this weekend. The MPSF Midseason Rumble. I'd like to put my gripe out there that the third weekend of the year is not midseason, and people should stop considering it as such. And if the MPSF wants to go to a multi-weekend conference schedule like the OVC or like the Pac-12 used to have, then by all means, please do stop calling it midseason. Okay, that's my final gripe. That has UCLA, Stanford, Grand Canyon, Cal, Oregon, and the University of Southern California, Women of Troy. So there will be some good volleyball there. Michael, any tournaments you're kind of looking forward to?
Yeah, I think looking out at the Bakersfield tournament, they're doing like a split tournament out there. Like I said, you got Bakersfield, Concordia there. ULM hosting this weekend, and they got LSU coming up. They're gonna play LSU twice. That's a huge win for that school of getting a big Power Five school to come up to ULM. So enjoy those five courts out there. TCU getting to host Boise. I think that could be a pretty good match there. See, Boise had a really good weekend last weekend. They challenged themselves, went to two different locations, played some really tough matches. So now going out to TCU, challenging themselves again. I think that could be a really cool thing for them. But you got TCU, Florida State, FAU, Texas. Like Texas is going to get challenged this weekend too. That's going to be a really cool tournament to watch and see what unfolds from there. Florida Gulf Coast hosting down in. I think this is their first time hosting a beach tournament
Now with they've hosted before, but they used to only have two courts.
now with their
So
new facility, right?
yeah, they got their new facility. I think Chris got four courts down there, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah,
And so he can actually host like real tournaments. It used to take him 3 hours to host a duel. So he'd have like two or three teams there and they'd get like three duels in the day and then they'd be out. But that looks like a really good one. I mean, you got the ASUN matchup of Florida Gulf at Stetson.
yeah,
You've got FIU on their hot bump. You've got UNF testing themselves on their undefeated season so far,
yeah,
with their other ASUN opponents, and then South Carolina making the long trek down to Fort Myers to see if they can't go prove something. I mean, you go have a 4-0 weekend this weekend, somebody's moving up. That's
yeah.
that's the God's honest truth.
Selfishly, like for me, I like that we played South Carolina last weekend, and now they're going to go play three other ASUN teams that we won't see for another couple weeks. To see like where were we last weekend, and how much do we need to grow in the next 3 weeks before we go down to Jacksonville. So
Yeah.
I really like that one. And then I'm a big one out here in Clarksville, Tennessee. If you need a place to come, come out to Clarksville. There's plenty of hotel space. It's spring break weekend, so everyone is fleeing Clarksville.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Sounds like the weather's going to be great.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I'll do my own shameless plug. Arizona, Tempe, on spring training season. So if you want to go see baseball, see beach volleyball, we do have a top 10 matchup with Arizona State and Cal Poly taking on each other. You got that scrappy Coastal Carolina Chanticleers team looking to come make some waves, and then the always strong Arizona Wildcats and perennial tournament team Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So that it should be fun volleyball pretty much across the country. I love the LSU going up to ULM. That's a big shout out. I would
yeah,
agree. And then not to mention Hawaii back in action against Washington, another team that's had a little bit of a tough go of it. They also have the Tulane Green Wave. who have been a little bit of they're always a little bit of a spicy team. AL Zimet played at Hawaii back in the day. St. Mary's is going to be there. That's Janice Hare, a Hawaiian of sorts, and then Taylor Crabb, I believe, is from the great state of Hawaii, and by believe, I mean I know he is. And I'll say it. So you got a little bit of like a hometown pride type deal with St. Mary's and Tulane and UH playing there. And then Washington, a good ranked squad. San Francisco making the trek.
Yeah.
Shout out Emily Cook and that team. Rooting for a good weekend out there in Hawaii so we can see how it goes. Michael, who's your game to watch? I know we've said it about 3 times today,
Yep,
but let's just
third time's a
reiterate it one more
charm.
time.
Concordia versus Bakersfield on Saturday. Kind of get those two teams that have never really been in the rankings and seeing them receiving votes, kind of getting some new national recognition. I think that's really cool. And then getting to see them play up against each other. I think that's what kind of the lower seeds rankings are, is to start getting that attention, not only from peers of who's in the sport, but recruits. I think recruiting, it helps out a ton to be able to get some more national exposure. And now we can get some eyes on a match where they're both going to be in it. So I think that one is big, not only for the two teams, but for the sport itself and being able to show how these rankings can really help a program.
Yeah. And I'll give a little shout. I copped out a little bit, I'll be honest. I picked two because it was hard for me to decide. My brain said UNF Stetson, right? Undefeated North Florida, a rematch of the ASUN championship last year, right? How do you not want to on neutral site, right? It's not at somebody's home court, so like there's just so much great energy around that match. You hope you're going to see it again in April on ESPN Plus for the ASUN
Hey,
championship.
no, 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 no. Austin P will be in there. Sorry.
In the ASUN championship. I apologize, not the final, just in the tournament as a whole. Obviously, Austin P will be duking it out with
Whoever,
Lindenwood for
whoever wants to
the
play us.
yeah. So whoever wants to play you. But the heart, right? The heart picked Boise State FAU
There you go.
because those are my guys. Steve Grotowski and Alex Finardos and I are good friends. We chat almost every week, almost as much as Michael and I talk. I talk to those two guys, and this will be one of the first times that they get to play each other. I'm very heartbroken that I am not at this event. If I had known better, I would have signed up for this and not gone to Austin, Texas, or Arizona State. No, I'm kidding, of course. Very grateful to go to it, but I do want to see how that match plays out because I also know it will create such a fun conversation on Sunday when me and the boys get back on the phone together and talk. So, Boise FAU or UNF Stetson, take your pick. It'll be good volleyball either way. And I just hope that we get to continue to see our sport grow. Shout out LSU last weekend for having their matches on VBTV.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
huge.
and Texas had theirs on the Longhorn Network, so hopefully we'll get to see more streaming options available for schools across the country. Um, last thing, right? If you're still listening,
Right.
we forgot. Cesar wanted us to make sure we double mentioned. Yes, he did take the Florida Southwestern job, and we're so excited for him. He is, however, not heading out there until after he wins the national championship with LMU. So Cesar and the Lions of Loyola Marymount plan on taking it all home. I think they're the number one team in the country, although Triple J always makes a pretty strong case for UCLA to be up there too. So either way, the top three, four, five, six, seven, or eight are all pretty good volleyball teams. But Cesar is going to stick around LMU all season. So if you see him on the sand, say hi, congrats, but also go Lions.
All right. Well, hey, week two over. Week three, here we come, and we'll see you again for week four.
Good luck, brother.